Hello everyone, how are you doing? This is David Oshin from DJT Concept, an award-winning IT training and development company in Africa. We specialize in cybersecurity, cloud computing, data analysis, and so much more. In our Cybersecurity Analyst Course series, we're talking about frameworks and controls. What are frameworks and what are the security controls? Frameworks are a set of guides and rules that help you to build plans to minimize security risk or mitigate security risk and vulnerabilities. So frameworks are just like having a building plan. You want to build a house and you have a building plan in place of how the house would look like from the onset. So frameworks are the kind of overall security guide that determines how you want to build your security in your team and in your company. So frameworks are basically the security guide that helps you to control and manage security risk. So there are different frameworks out there. So your company can decide either to build an internal framework or to work with already established frameworks. There are many frameworks that companies use all over the world, and there are many standards depending on the industry that the company is. For example now, if you're a company that is actually accepting credit cards, maybe like a fintech company accepting credit cards, you need to align with the PCI DSS. That's why when you see a company accepting credit card, you see this PCI DSS signature stamp at the side of the card. So what does that mean? Payment card industry data security standard. So it's a framework that guides any business that wants to accept credit cards on behalf of people. So there are many other frameworks that help businesses to improve their security posture and also help businesses to manage security risks and to reduce the impact of the risk. Frameworks are so important for any company, both for big companies and small companies. Before, frameworks were only used by very big corporations, large corporations, and even government-established corporations. But now, even small businesses can adopt frameworks and help them to plan security. Today, we're looking at some of the most popular frameworks. Example is the NIST Security Framework or National Institute of Standard and Technology Security Framework. We also look at the CIA Triad, which is also a framework. The NIST Security Framework helps companies to put proper security measures in place that guides against risk and vulnerabilities. So there's a difference between a framework and a security control. A framework is basically the overall security guide that the company puts in place to be able to manage security risk. While security controls are the specific controls that the company puts in place. What does that mean? Your framework can be like the building plan, whereas the security control are the specific set of things that are done to improve security. So let me give you a very close example. A company can have a security goal for the year. This is what we want to achieve. The security tools are the specific things that are done to improve their security posture. For example, installment of firewalls. For example, installment of CCTV cameras. For example, the company can decide to make sure they have backups for any of their softwares. They can decide to install so many security antivirus. These are security tools. The framework is the overall guide, but the security tools are the specific tools that are used to perform what is written in the framework. So the framework is more like a policy, more like a guide that helps the company to manage security risk and to be able to minimize security risk. So let's talk about the NIST framework. The NIST framework is a very popular framework that ensures companies are compliant and make sure that they are able to mitigate security risk. The NIST framework consists of 5 very important things. Number 1 is identify. Every company needs to identify what are your critical assets. What are the touch points for risk and vulnerabilities. That's the first thing you need to identify. For example, as a company, maybe your laptops, maybe your point of sale, maybe your gadgets, all of the gadgets that can pose a security risk, you need to identify everything. So from the onset, identify. That's the first rule of the NIST framework. Identify what are the things you are using in this company that can be exploited by scammers or hackers. Those are the first thing you do. Then when you identify them, the next step of the NIST security framework is to what? Protect. After identifying all of the resources that could be exploited by scammers or hackers, the next thing to do is what? Place a protection on them. Protect the things that can be exploited. Protect your whatever is your, maybe one of the things you're looking at can be exploited, can be your emails, whatever it is. Make sure all of those things are protected. So you have to put security measures in place to protect everything you have identified as your critical assets, both physical assets and maybe software assets. Identify all of these things, then protect them. The number 3 thing in the NIST Cybersecurity Framework is detect. Can you detect if something is going wrong? So what is a normal day like for you in your company? When you observe something going wrong, do you have tools in place? Do you have security tools in place to detect something going wrong? Do you have firewalls? Do you have encryption devices? Do you have IDS, intrusion detection systems, that can be able to spot something going wrong? A company is supposed to have things that can detect that something is going wrong and something is happening somewhere. There is an attempt to hijack the company's resources. All of these things must be in place. So the first thing is to identify what are your critical assets. Identify what are the assets that can be exploited by hackers, by scammers, and by the threat actors and the bad guys. The next thing is to do is what? Protect all of these critical assets. After protection, make sure you have tools in place that can detect if something is going on in the company against the normal working procedure of the company. Obviously, you are not waiting for a security incident to occur, but if it does occur, you have to respond. So we'll talk about the first thing, to identify. You cannot protect what you don't identify. You need to examine all of your assets and examine to identify which one of them presents a risk. Next is to protect. After protecting, you have to detect in case all of these things that we are using, if something is being infected, how do you detect that? You have to put in tools like IDS, like firewalls, and other tools to be able to detect something going against the normal procedure of the company. Then we'll talk about the next one now, is to respond. How do you respond to an attack? You need to have a proper measure in place to be able to respond. Your team is supposed to have a proper measure in place to respond to every attack. And that is why the NIST Cybersecurity Framework is very important, because you need to learn how to respond. How do you respond? How do you contain the incident from going further and spreading to all the devices? So you need to put that plan in place to respond. For example, a phishing attack is done on one of your staffs. How do you respond? How do you contain the incidents from spreading to other networks in your company? This is very important. You need to learn and put a plan in place to respond. After response, the next step is to recover, and that's the final step. How do you recover from an incident and go back to business continuity? For example, you have been attacked and there's an incident and several files are lost, data is being compromised. How do you recover? You must make sure you have plans in place to recover to business continuity. Maybe you have a backup file for every of the thing going on, where you can easily install your backup. Response is very important, while recovery is the most important. If a company doesn't have a proper plan to recover, that company might be in danger when an incident occurs. The NIST Cybersecurity Framework is to guide businesses, both big and small, on how to plan for a security incident, and in case it occurs, how to recover from it. So we have the identify, we have the protect, we have the detect, we have the respond, and we have the recover. So you can say after me: identify, We have protect, we have detect, we have respond, and we have recover. Every company should have the NIST framework to be able to see how they can protect their company and their resources, their data, and their users from a cybersecurity breach. There are other frameworks out there depending on the industry. For example, if you are in the healthcare industry, you might consider aligning and complying with the HIPAA framework, HIPAA. This framework also gives guidelines on how to protect sensitive data regarding the health information of your customers. You can also require, if you are in the fintech industry, you might be required to comply with the PCI DSS framework. All of these frameworks set are guidelines to help you to be able to mitigate risk and minimize the impact of the risk, prevent them from occurring, and if they do occur, how to recover. Most important is the CIA triad. It means that all of your customer details need to be confidential, it needs to have integrity, and needs to be available as at when needed. The CIA triad governs how security world is, in the sense that if, for example, you are a fintech company, you must make sure that every of your customer information is confidential. It is only given to them on a need-to-know basis. Only those who are authorized should be able to access such information. And the information must not be tampered with, must not be edited. It must have integrity. That's the second principle, integrity. And number three, it must be available when the customer needs it. So it means that if I need to access my data, it should be given to me on request as at any time I need it. These principles help security companies or help companies to stay security compliant and guide their businesses day to day from different attacks and how to recover from the attack. So the best thing is to prepare before an incident occurs, and if they do occur, have a plan in place to be able to recover from that incident. So I hope I'm able to explain to you about frameworks and about security controls and about the NIST Cybersecurity Framework. Remember, security controls are the specific things you put in place to establish what you have in your cybersecurity framework. So once you have a framework, you put the tools in place, the policies in place, and all of these tools are important to guide your company. Alright, I believe this has been a very insightful edition. Have a wonderful day and join me in another class. See you. Bye.